Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm Tamika Lori Pugh, also known as the Empowering Diva. Each week, you'll hear inspirational interviews as well as actionable tips and strategies that you can implement into your daily life to help you live a life of passion, purpose, and potential. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump into today's episode of Living the Empowered Life. Are you the go-to person in your group of friends? Do you have a zest for life and enjoy helping others reach their full potential? Do you feel a calling to make a difference in the world? If this is you, then you may want to consider becoming a life coach. We have a virtual online training starting soon. Our life coach training focuses on helping women who desire to motivate, inspire, and empower other women by using their skills, expertise, and experience to thrive as a personal development coach. Using the empowerment formula, participants will learn step-by-step tools, tips, and techniques needed to attract great clients and build a thriving, purposeful, and profitable coaching business. Get all the details and register at www.tamikolori.com/life coach training. Welcome to another episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I'm your host, the Empowering Diva, Tamika Lori Pugh. In today's episode, I'll be talking with licensed life insurance broker and sports publicist Chelsea Phillips. Chelsea is a graduate of Auburn University, where she majored in public relations and had a concentration in business management. She joined her family business and personal finance in 2015, where she obtained her license in insurance. Chelsea later incorporated her LLC, where she works as a sports publicist for NFL players. She considers herself a Dual-Preneur, managing both businesses and personal finance and sports PR. Listen, I've had the opportunity to share the stage with Chelsea at an event in Atlanta a few years ago, and let me just tell you, she is a powerhouse in her own right. So let's welcome Chelsea Phillips to Living the Empowered Life podcast. So you've heard her amazing bio. Let's go ahead and jump into our powerful conversation with Chelsea Phillips. Chelsea, how are you?
I am doing so amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Welcome to Living the Empowered Life podcast, where we talk all things empowering. And Chelsea, the reason why I had you on is because I think that you're very empowering. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm super proud of everything that you're doing. So just thank you for being here today. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So I want to go ahead and dive into this conversation. You have a couple of businesses going on, but I want to talk about one at a time. So just tell us a little bit about what you do as a licensed life insurance broker and who's your target audience.
Okay, perfect. So I have been licensed now for 5 years, and I always love to tell the personal story about how I got involved. So my parents have owned 26 franchises for the past 40 years. This is all I've ever seen my family do growing up, right? And so my target audience is married couples, people that have kids, people that are working, essentially people who need, who have people that are depending on their income. God forbid they don't come home tomorrow. And our whole goal is just to educate people on the importance of life insurance. There's so many statistics out there just about, communities of people who don't have life insurance and what it looks like down the line when they don't, and when they pass away prematurely and they don't have the life insurance in force. So my whole goal, my whole mission with our family business is to educate people on the importance of it and make sure they have a proper plan in place so that their family is protected. God forbid they don't come home.
Yeah, and that's one of those things you don't really want to have to talk about, but the conversation has to be had. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really want to, even I had this conversation with my mom not long ago, and she's like, here are my documents. I'm going to send you this stuff in the mail. And I'm like, I don't want to have this conversation.
Right.
But we have to do it, right?
Yeah, we do. And it's so much better to be proactive instead of reactive. Because the worst time you can be talking about this such and such have life insurance is when you're sitting across the table from a mortician or at the funeral home, right? So it's so much better to be prepared than to have to prepare later when it actually happens.
And then what ends up happening is, even I see this on social media a lot. I see a lot of the GoFundMes.
Yes.
So is that where we see those GoFundMe campaigns come in?
Yes. And so, life insurance is actually a vehicle that you can use to pass on generational wealth, right? So not just in terms of funeral expenses, but if you don't come home tomorrow, will your mortgage be taken care of? Will your kids' college education be taken care of? Do you have any unsatisfied debts? And would you like to leave an income behind for your family? And so when people don't have life insurance, they try to do fundraising, right, in a 3 to 4 day period for the bare minimum, which is the funeral expenses. They're not even in a position to factor in what happens, when little Johnny doesn't have a mom here anymore and he's desiring to go to college 10 years from now, right? So that is absolutely, we see the GoFundMe accounts, we see the fish fries, the t-shirt sales. I saw somebody as recently as about 2 weeks ago, one of my friends shared something on her page and she was literally auctioning off a YSL wallet for everybody who donated $50. Their name will be in an auction to raise money for her mom's funeral. So people get really creative when they don't have the conversations about life insurance.
Yeah. Wow. You said fish fry. When you said fish fry, I'm like, the old school church fish fry?
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. That's getting very creative when you're doing the fish fries.
Right.
We don't want to have to do fish fries, people. You need to make sure you have insurance. It's so important.
Exactly.
And here's what I love. You said that your family had 26 franchises?
Yes. We actually just opened our 26th office up in Kentucky 2 Fridays ago. So not this past Friday, but the one prior. And so we have been in an ownership position where we're able to put, franchisees in a position to open their own franchise, right, as well as oversee. We have 700 licensed agents that work with us as well. So, we're really in a position to put it out and get it into the community about the importance of life insurance. And my family's been doing it. My dad started when he was 23. So March, we would have been celebrating 40 years, but, COVID kind of took away that celebration. But we still celebrate it because it's a huge accomplishment to be in business for yourself for 40 years.
That is a huge accomplishment to be in business for 40 years. And what a great service to the community to provide life insurance, something that's extremely needed. So kudos to you and your family. I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So even outside of doing the life insurance work, you're a sports publicist, right?
Yes. I am.
How did you get into that field? How did you go from, well, you have 2 businesses. So how did you get into being a sports publicist?
So it was always my heart's desire just to be in a position to help people better themselves, right? And so when I was at Auburn, I graduated from Auburn University in 2015. But while I was at Auburn, I had some of those experiences that let me know, okay, this is what I want to do. This is not what I want to do. And so while I was at Auburn, I worked with Auburn Athletics in the media relations department. And I was helping with printouts for mailers, for coaching clinics, the 4 and 5 star recruits. I started the Instagram football page. So that's always a fun fact. And it's since grown to over hundreds of thousands of followers. But I always knew I wanted to be in the sports arena. Now, I never played sports. I guess the conversation is always debatable if cheerleading is a sport or not. But at any rate, I never played contact sports. I wasn't big in basketball or anything like that. But I just did believe that these athletes, they have such a huge platform on any level. People look up to them like they are, these superhumans with 4 legs and 5 arms, right? But they're just people like you and I that have an amazing story to tell as well. So about 1.5 years ago, actually almost 2 years ago, one of my good friends from college, we had always talked about it. I always tell people it's important to profess what it is that you want so the people around you know, right? Mm-hmm. And so we always talked about what it would look like when he plays in the NFL. And I would say, I'm definitely interested. If you ever need help, right, keep me in the back of your mind. And so he had been in the league, I want to say at that point, for 3 years. He had been in the league for 3 years, and he called me prior to last summer, and he said, "Hey, Chelsea, listen, I want to plan a football camp, and if I want anybody to plan it, I want it to be you. You know, I know you talked about doing this kind of stuff and all that good stuff." And in the back of my head, I was like, wow, he trusts me to do this. And I have no idea, like what I'm going to be doing. But it all worked out. His agent was there. His agent came to the camp, and he texted us after and said he had never seen a camp run so smooth. He was just so impressed with everything, from the drone footage we had of the recap to the bounce house for the kids that were like the younger siblings of the people that came to camp. And so from there, it really birthed like a passion, like, hey, I'm great at planning. Had no idea I was so great at planning. But I did my LLC, and then from there I networked and met another player who's one of my clients as well, and it's grown since then. So it's been a joyride to balance two businesses, but it's amazing.
Yeah, that is definitely amazing. So do you even like sports?
Oh, I love watching football. Like,
okay.
So I'm one of 4 girls. So my parents have they have 4 daughters. And they always say that I'm the son my dad never had. I love cars, right? I love sports. I love football. I love all of that stuff. So I cheered for varsity football and varsity basketball when I was in high school. And I think that's in middle school. And I think that's where my passion was kind of birthed. I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I see why people sit in front of the TVs on Saturdays and Sundays to watch this. This is interesting. So I started learning the sport then when I was in high school, middle school and high school. And then, of course, going to a big SEC school in college, the love for it continued. I was, as often as I could be, I was at every Saturday game when they played in Jordan-Hare Stadium. And then from there, I was like, this is really cool.
That's good stuff. I love that. And it sounds like you're really passionate about what you do. I love that you said, helping people better themselves. I think that we're put on this earth ultimately to be a service to someone or a group of people. So when you go into entrepreneurship, I totally believe that we have to go in it with the intention of serving other people and helping people to be better. So when you said that, I was like, oh, you're amazing. So you're definitely doing what you're supposed to be doing, helping people to better themselves.
Yes. And I love it. I love it because the athletes that I represent, they just give me free range. They say, hey, listen, I want to plan an event that focuses on inner city youth. And they just let my imagination run wild, and I'll plan it and execute it and get the media there and make sure we have write-ups. And it's just amazing to work with people, while I'm helping them get what they want or what they desire as far as their nonprofits and their businesses goes. I'm feeling fulfilled as well, knowing that because of this event, we help these families in this community, and we are able to touch these type of people. So it's definitely fulfilling on both ends.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. And then being that your family has been in, business owners for 40 years, you were able to take the skills that you learned from your family business to grow your business, right, of your own PR firm. So how were you able what skills did you pull over from the family business?
Absolutely. So definitely number one, networking. My dad always told us the importance of networking because the story of how my family's business started, my dad is from Philadelphia. He went to school in North Carolina, and then he moved to Texas for a job opportunity. And then he ended up coming to Atlanta to build his business. So when he was in Georgia, he had no roots in Georgia. But since then, he's built a multi-million-dollar organization, has clients literally at this point all over. But all of that started from a networking conversation that he had with somebody who put him in contact with somebody who he knew needed the product. And it just grew from there. So number one, first and foremost, is networking. You cannot, in my opinion, grow a successful business that touches people if people don't know what exactly it is that you do. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is just the planning. I've seen my parents plan and execute hundreds of events. My mom is actually the founder of an organization that has since grown to 7,000 to 10,000 people we have on an annual basis at this meeting. And, the planning component was huge. So those are two major things I would definitely say that has stuck with me, that I've applied both in my life insurance business as well as my sports PR business.
That's good stuff. Networking and planning. And those are two very important items when it comes to entrepreneurship. Like you said, like people need to know who you are and what it is that you do. And then you have to be able to plan. So thank you for sharing those tips. Those are really good tips. And I actually met you at an event a couple of years ago. We both were speaking and I heard you speak then. And I thought, you know what? This young lady is powerful. She knows what she's doing. I mean, just to hear you up there, talking about finances and insurance, I was very impressed. And so, of course, once I launched the podcast, you were on my list of guest speakers to have, simply because of, being able to network with you at that event. So networking is always important.
Yes, that was a great event. That's literally September. This month makes 2 years. That was 2018.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. Absolutely. Yeah, because I was actually supposed to launch the podcast in 2019 and then let fear, had a little bit of fear, didn't do it. And so then I ended up doing it this year. But yeah, that was definitely 2 years ago. Wow.
Time flies, right?
It does. It does. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, being a female, right, working as a sports publicist, do you have any challenges being a woman in your field? And if you do have any challenges, like what have you done to overcome them?
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of the times when I'm in the room with one of my players, it's like, okay, who are you? Are you the girlfriend? Are you the wife? And I'm like, I'm the publicist. Nice to meet you.
Right.
Just to see their faces like, oh, like, sorry, didn't realize, So I think a lot of times people categorize women. They put us in these boxes. And if they see us in another field, it's almost like surprising. Like, wow, you represent this, this huge player. He's literally a franchise player. And it's like, yes, I do. And I'll be answering any questions and I'll be his connect. If you have anything that you need to send to us, here's my email address. So I think the thing that I do that kind of just combats it, sometimes I have to laugh it off, but just making myself known, and just letting them know this is what I do. You have any questions? Here's my card. And just keeping it, strictly professional, but, never getting offended by it at all. Cause I understand that society has kind of raised a lot of people to think that women should do X, Y, and Z, and they should stay out of sports and they should, do this and do that. And so just letting them know that this is what I'm here for. Any questions can be directed to me. And it's kind of like, oh, my apologies. I didn't realize. And I'm just like, no, it's fine. A lot of people don't realize. So here we are.
Yeah.
In sports, definitely. And then in my life insurance business, in the finance business, I've had a lot of people challenge me because of my age. I'm in my, I guess, late 20s at this point. I'm 27. And when I was getting started at 22 years old, people were like, well, you're my daughter's age. What can you tell me about my finances? And then by the end of our conversation, it's like, okay, well, you could tell me a lot about my finances. I had no idea about X, Y, and Z. So my sister's and we're in business together as well. And she always says that we have strikes against us. People are going to look at us because we're millennials. They're going to look at us because we're women, and they're going to look at us because we're Black. But in a way it plays up in our advantage, because when they see that we're knowledgeable in our fields, then it's like, okay, well, I respect you. I understand that, you're in a position to teach me something that I had no idea about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of, sometimes it seems like it's unfair as women, that the boxes that we get put in. And I remember being a keynote speaker at an event. I can't remember what event it was, but they were also having a fashion show. And I remember walking in and the guy was like, oh, you one of the models? Go get dressed back there. And I'm like, no, sir, I'm the keynote speaker. I'm the keynote speaker, sir. But thank you. I'll take model. That was cute, but no. Right. I'm delivering the word today.
Exactly. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So it happens, and we're always. I feel like we're always having to prove ourselves. But as time goes on, I think that it's getting better. You know, the future is female.
Mm-hmm.
Women really do run the world at this point. I mean, look who's going to be our VP in a
Right.
couple of months. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, Chelsea, honey, you are busy, busy, busy. Like, you're a dual-preneur, right? You got two businesses that you're managing, personal finances, sports PR. How do you balance doing everything?
Man, I live by my calendar. Like, I literally live by my calendar because not only that, I'm a mentor for a group of girls in my hometown, and we meet twice a week, balancing a relationship, balancing family, balancing friends. And so the biggest thing is I'm an advocate of having a calendar and also making time for myself because you can't pour from an empty cup. You know,
That's
ever so
true.
often, I just have to unplug to recharge so that I can be the best version of myself for my clients, you know, and for the people that I'm coming encounter with. So it's a beautiful chaos. I don't know. Sometimes I look at my schedule and I'm like, did I even eat today? Like, this is crazy, right? But I live by my calendar.
Yeah, I think we all do. And I live by my calendar. If you're not on my calendar, then we don't have a meeting.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
Even, one of my friends, she's a consultant. Actually, she does PR work. And one of her clients, they needed me for something. And I sent her a link. And she was like, what's this link? I was like, it's the link for my calendar invite. She's like, but I'm your friend. I'm like, but you're reaching out for me for business. And
Right.
so I need it to be on my calendar or else it won't get done. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I will send you a link very quickly. Fill out that link and get on my calendar.
Exactly.
And thank God for the phones, the smartphones that we have nowadays. I have my to-do list in there. I have
Mm-hmm.
my reminders. I have my calendar. So that definitely helps a lot.
It definitely does.
Yes, yes. And what you're doing, I think, is very purposeful. One of the principles of living an empowered life is to live a life of purpose. So we have 6 principles, and one of them is living a life of purpose. So, how important is it to understand your purpose when you're starting a business or you're looking at entrepreneurship?
It is so incredibly important. And I tell this because I have agents that I train as well. And I tell them that you have to figure out what it is that you're passionate about, or else you will not be driven by the work that you do.
Mm,
Right. And so just to have that purpose, to understand that you're doing this for a higher reason. And it drives you, it's super important to me. And I'm just so glad that at the age of 22 and then again at 24, 25, that I was able to really just tap in and say, okay, of the business, like this is the component that really gets me excited. So, when my friends see life insurance, it's like, well, do you really get excited about talking to people about, life insurance? I'm like, I get excited about the fact that when I have these conversations, they're in a position to leave a legacy behind.
hmm
By the year 2053, Black Enterprise did an article that the African American net worth is supposed to be zero.
What?
2053, the net worth is zero. And so with life insurance, I know it's just crazy to conceptualize, but if, somebody leaves behind $1 million policy, and of course, net worth is asset minus liabilities. And a lot of times we have a lot of liabilities and not a lot of assets, right?
hmm
But if they leave behind, let's just say a $500,000 life insurance policy, now you're in a position to build your assets. You can buy that house, right? Or make sure that house is paid off. You can have those appreciating assets to make sure that you're not in that statistic. So that's the part about the life insurance that I'm passionate about, right? It's not necessarily, doing the quotes and stuff like that, but just knowing that when I have these conversations with people who half of the time don't even have any idea the difference between job insurance and personal insurance and having enough for your family, that's the purpose inside that drives me to do what I do every morning. Because, sometimes people are like, oh, no, I'm good. And it has to be bigger than my feelings getting hurt, that somebody could just say, no, I'm not interested, or, whatever the case is. It has to be bigger than me so that every day that I can continue, right, to be driven by that purpose, knowing that, okay, 5 no's over here, but I had a yes right there. And that was the purpose in which I'm doing this.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. You have a seminar. You do your Women in Money seminars. Can you tell us about that, or do you have one coming up?
Yes, so we're about to get those back rolling. I was doing them in person prior to March, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just for women and money, just we're educating women on the importance of understanding your finances as a woman. You know, the craziest thing that I hear sometimes is women say, "Oh no, my husband, he takes care of that. I'm good." And it's like, okay, but God forbid, you know, you and your husband split, or God forbid something happens to your husband. Obviously, not wishing that on somebody, but you need to understand what X, Y, and Z looks like, just from an understanding standpoint. Not, you know, you have to take it over. Just understanding what that looks like if anything were to happen, so that you can have your hands on your finances. And Susie Orman talks a lot about that. She is a financial guru, like beast. And
Yeah,
she
I
talks
love
about
her.
yeah, and she talks a lot about women and money, and it's like it's so important for us to have these conversations. So, anyways, with all that being said, we're going to be starting those back up in November, the Women and Money seminars, and it's just going to be on Zoom. You know, 30 to 45 minutes of education, and then the last 15 minutes of opening up for questions, so that if anybody says, okay, well, what about this and what about that? That way it's a dialogue for women to better understand what we've already discussed or what they already have a question on. So, yes, those are coming back in November. I am super excited to educate women on money.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important to be educated on money. And especially, you know, oftentimes, like you said, the husband, may handle all of the finances.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't typically know what's going on. So I know even for me, I'm not a numbers person. I allow my husband to kind of handle all that stuff. But we do sit down, and go over everything so that I'm not always, so I'm not in the dark per se.
Right.
So I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate you doing these seminars. So if someone wanted to be a part of the Women in Money series, how would they sign up?
So we'll do a flyer, with the Zoom information, all that good stuff. But if they will actually wanted to be a part, they could just email me. And will my email be provided? Should I give it now?
You can give it now.
Okay. So they can email me at CP, as in Chelsea Phillips, .publicrelations1, the number 1, @gmail.com. And so from there, I live by my emails as well. And from there, we can definitely have some conversation, get some dialogue going about the Women in Money seminars.
Awesome. And those that want to register, they would do the same thing?
Yes. Mm-hmm. They would do the same thing for those who are interested in registering and attending.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Thanks for sharing that information. You've shared a lot of very important information. I took a lot of notes, and I love that your business is purposeful. But before we close out, I do want to make sure that you were able to kind of share everything you needed to share, and if you had a final thought for the audience.
Yes. So we can connect everything I want to share in regards to connecting. So we can connect on Instagram, and that's at chelsea.s.phillips. My website is chelseasphillips.com. Would love to connect on there. And just a final thought, it's super important to live an empowered life. I'm so excited that you have this podcast. I cannot wait to hear more amazing speakers coming out of it. But to live an empowered life is huge. And it's just so important that you're living a life of purpose, that you're living a life that you are passionate about, that you create the life that you want and don't let life create it for you. And just to keep striving to be your best self and just keep shining.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Keep shining, keep shining, keep shining. I love that. Chelsea, thank you so much for being my guest today. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and have an amazing rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Tamiko. I definitely appreciate you for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Living the Empowered Life podcast. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with my powerhouse guest, Chelsea Phillips, and that you were able to draw some inspiration as you continue your journey of living an empowered life. And remember to always follow your dreams, believe in yourself, and don't give up. What if you can make a difference in the world using your expertise, your experience, and your story? When you write a self-help book, you have the power to help other people address their most pressing personal and professional issues while also finding your success as an author. If you're a survivor of life's adversities, if you have an expertise or experience that can make a profound impact on the world, then I invite you to register for my free training, How to Write a Self-Help Book in 30 Days. In this free training, you'll learn the 5 keys to writing a successful self-help book, how to craft an outline, how to create a writing schedule, and actually stick to it. You'll also learn how to brainstorm book ideas using your personal story, your expertise, and your life experiences. This training is free, but you must register at tinyurl.com/author training. So ladies, listen. It's time to discover and live your life purpose. It's time to value yourself. It's time to set goals that are going to move you forward in life. It's time to rebuild your confidence. It's time to fearlessly walk in your authentic power. And ladies, it's time to live the empowered life.